You may or may not know this, but we are sponsored. We are presented by Revolution Brewing, who
We've got a goddamn sponsor. How
we've
crazy
got
is
a
that?
sponsor. We still every day, I think, probably say to ourselves, like, wow, we actually have a sponsor on this podcast after years and years of working on this,
Toiling in
decades.
anonymity.
Yes, now we actually have a
We're
sponsor,
big
and
time.
part of that sponsorship is they give us free beer. And
That's a pretty good piece of that sponsorship.
they were nice enough to give us some of their Deep Woods series beer, and I'm going to walk through that. For those of you who don't know, there is another channel part of the Word Hole Media Network, which is called Pete's Food Frenzy, which
Mm.
due to COVID and some other things, it kind of dropped off because being able to go out and try food became a bit of a challenge. So there's what's up there, about a dozen episodes or
I
so,
think you have
maybe.
13 now.
Yeah.
You've had a YouTube channel for a couple of years. We're fleshing that out into a Twitter page as well. So that's in the works. But yeah, we're trying to build up that third. It's actually you started as a video blog.
Yes.
We're gonna kind of convert that into a short podcast as we can, but they call it a microcast. Is it? Our Major League A-holes and Limp Ditka's shows end up being an hour and a half. Well, this, if you can't take us for that long, these are less than 5-minute bursts of Pete and his thoughts about the latest food trends. So it's a more digestible version of
Yes,
you at
literally.
least. So yeah, literally. So check that out. Be on the lookout for Pete's Food Frenzy.
Although I will tell you, not all the food I've tried is really digestible. So
Yes.
go on
Yeah,
and check that out. But
that Subway was a bad choice.
kind of, yes, it was a terrible choice. Kind of on the coattails of that, I'm going to walk through a couple of Deep Woods series I've tried. And what
is Deep Woods?
Well, that I'm going to tell you, Ryan. When
Thank
Ryan and
you.
when Smitty and I sat there when we picked up our first allotment of beer for our sponsorship, we noticed at the Revolution Tap House, which is a wonderful giant, like it's modeled after a German. What do they call them in German? Not a beer house.
It's probably got a 40-syllable name that
Yeah, but it's a German beer halls. That's what I'm looking for.
Drafthaus.
Is what it's modeled
Drafthausen.
after, and it definitely has that look. It's got the long bench tables and all that. And we noticed there were just a ton of oak barrels there, and I moseyed on over and said, "Oh, this one's an Elijah Craig barrel. They must be doing some bourbon aged beer." And
Now you're a bourbon guy. I know nothing about bourbon, so
yeah, Elijah Craig is actually one of my favorites. So I was happy to see that barrel there. I don't know what other barrels they were using, but long story short, they have a series of beers called the Deep Woods series that has a few releases over the fall winter time frame. And release one came out, and these are beers that are aged in bourbon barrels for 12 months. So they just put obviously whatever beer they're doing for next year went into those barrels that we were probably looking at right around the time we were there, probably to get them canned and everything on time.
So the bourbon flavor or accents of flavor kind of seep into the beer. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So within when you age the bourbon, there's something called the Devil's Cut. And the Devil's Cut is the bourbon that seeps into the wood. Then later, if you just let the barrel sit there, it eventually escapes. So when obviously putting beer back into the barrel, you're going to not only get some flavor from the barrel itself, but then also get a little bit of bourbon that trickles into that beer. And what Revolution does in this case is they take oatmeal, double oatmeal stout, put it in there, and let it age. The two that I tried was Death Star and Café Deth. The difference is Café Deth is aged with dark matter coffee beans in there too, so it has a hint of coffee. So So I've tried a lot of bourbon aged beer over my time, and I really do have to say, and people will take this with a grain of salt because they're our sponsor probably, but it is really some of the best bourbon aged beer I've ever had. And
Nice.
the reason it is unlike some other companies, the bourbon doesn't overpower the beer, which I think is very important.
Yeah.
There's a fine line of the beer almost just tasting like bourbon, but then the bourbon is super heavy, so it becomes very difficult to drink. And there's another local company that does that, and that is kind of how theirs is. Um, but in this case, the bourbon is a hint. It's an enhancement to the stout that in the Death Star, what's really interesting is when you pull it up to your nose, you get this like this really rich smell of chocolate.
Nice.
So if anyone's ever participated in any like fancy food dining, I've done it a couple times where
I
they're
have
really
not.
they're really big about like smells affect the taste of the food. Obviously, that's
Sure.
known. So if you're kind of sniffing it in the tulip glass and then taking a sip, it all adds to the enjoyment of it, and it has some vanilla hints of vanilla in there with the oatmeal. And then what I found really nice about both of the deep woods that I tried is it's a very clean finish for a bourbon beer.
Hmm.
You don't have this overwhelming aftertaste of
The
like, wow, I
alcohol.
just did a shot of bourbon.
Yeah, that's not what you're looking for in a beer. So that's
No,
cool.
exactly. It's a very clean finish. Now, I like the cap because I'm a huge coffee drinker. Smitty will tell you I used to get crazy at work sometimes
Jesus,
when
I
we
can
worked
tell when you had
together.
your coffee.
After I had a
Oh shit.
venti americano, Pete was on the floor running
Pete's had his
around.
coffee. Look out.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like Scarface, but just with coffee. So I liked the Café Deth better because a
Oh,
little
okay.
bit better because of the coffee notes in there. But again, what Revolution has accomplished here, where others have failed, is they're all enhancements to the beer.
Yeah.
It's not like you're drinking bourbon as a
With beer in it.
beer.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So hats off to them. The second release is coming, just released yesterday. So hopefully we'll get some samples of that to try too. They are powerhouses though. You're not going to drink a lot of these.
Yeah, what's the ABV?
14.3%.
Whoa,
So
that's like, oh, it's like a barley wine or something
yeah, and
almost.
they have
Jesus.
done they just won a gold medal for their barley wine that was
Wow.
released. So kudos, hats
Yeah,
off to them for
congratulations,
that.
Revolution.
Congratulations, Revolution, for that. But if you can get your hands on these, definitely they're worth the investment. They're not quite as pricey as some of the other ones. It's like 4 cans for $25 or $30, where like one bottle will sometimes cost you $30 for a bourbon beer. So I would highly recommend these. Obviously, I'm not sampling one right now. It is
Yeah, Saturday morning.
10:22 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
I
So,
wasn't sure when you showed up in that outfit,
well, I
if you
may
had
be.
been drinking or not, but
I've actually been tailgating all morning.
well, that was kind of a long commercial, but I mean, I think anyone that I know that loves baseball as much as we do also loves beer. So I think it's a happy marriage, and we were ecstatic to have Revolution giving us some free beers, and we're more than happy to give some free, not free publicity. They gave us the beer, but we're going to use this platform to help out people that help us out. So thank you, Revolution.